some folks still logging in, but we'll go ahead and get this thing kicked off. So we changed things up a little bit this month. This is actually Andrew Lauder. I'm the director of the East region, and I will be filling in for Mark and trying to do my best to keep up with the expectations that he set in previous webinars. But we've actually got a very good topic to discuss today, which is selling managed cloud into vertical markets. And I think as this space continues to mature and you guys are starting to uncover opportunities, you're going to start seeing there's consistencies within each vertical market. So we wanted to kind of talk about those today, talk about some of the ones that we're having success in on a consistent basis, and just really kind of fill you in so you guys can understand kind of what we're doing and some of the things to be aware of. And just as always within our webinars, these will be available to you to send to you so you guys can see the deck. We'll have those out within 24 hours. They'll also be posted into the partner portal. If you guys do have any questions for our marketing department, you can reach them at the marketing@rapidscale.net. We can also get you set up in the partner portal there. Of course, any other questions that you have, any follow-up questions from this can be sent to them, and then they will direct those questions accordingly so that we can make sure that we get the answers that you guys need. So just starting off, a few stats that are out there, because we always think that statistics is a good way to bring credibility into what's going on within the marketplace. So for the first one is around the healthcare vertical and the expected growth that we'll be seeing up until 2020, where it's expected to be $9.48 billion. Healthcare was obviously one of the early adopters to the hosted space and kind of the cloud platform in general, based off of some of the regulations that they're up against and some other similarities that some of the businesses are going through, which we'll discuss. Manufacturing, another top vertical for us, is another one that's been growing a lot. They consider cloud computing among the most important technologies to strengthen their competitive edge within the next 5 years, right? And be able to stay relevant, being able to share information from multiple facilities and whatnot. 81% of manufacturers say that having a scalable, secure cloud platform improved mobile access to data. Sky High Networks did a study recently where they were showing that the average financial services firm is using over 1,000 cloud services. And then lastly, within the legal vertical, 45.2% of attorneys agree that mobility and freedom of access are the highest value benefits expected from cloud services. So the financial and the legal space has one that's kind of come on more recently than the manufacturing and the healthcare has. So we can expect the healthcare to be a little bit more open and willing across the board to have these conversations with you guys. But at the same time, it's also an advantage for companies like RapidScale when you're working with us, is that we've been there for a long time and working within all these verticals, so we've seen them from go through fruition to where they're at now. So, why focus on verticals and why educate yourself on different verticals that are out there? It's very simple. I mean, they're very much, I wouldn't say a cookie cutter for lack of a better word, but each of these verticals is using very similar applications and similar ways of doing business that can be very repeatable for you. So, for example, we have a few of our partners out there that do specifically focus on certain verticals, right? Some of the MSPs are very much ingrained into the healthcare space, is a big one, and also the financial space. So within the familiarity with those and the experience within those specific verticals, you start seeing the same common applications, you start seeing the same problems, you start seeing the different growth strategies that they have, but they're all very similar in how they're doing it. So it allows you to, with that experience, to walk in there when you're having a conversation with the business and to be able to touch on some of their business drivers and also be able to speak on, existing customers that you've worked with and similar problems that they've had, to be able to kind of help them come to a resolution. and at the same time be able to position a particular solution or a level of management that's available to them that would help to essentially ring a bell within their head and kind of make it make sense. Now, just like with anything else in this world, there's going to be obstacles that come up whenever you're just getting into trying to penetrate a vertical market. One of them is maybe there's a lack of experience, right? So the first of all, lack of experience or an unfamiliarity with the conversations we can avoid that by having the conversation before you go in there. So if you do have a customer that you've been working with, maybe you've done their voice and data for a while and you haven't necessarily touched the compute piece with them, maybe you recognized a problem within their business, so you can come to us, call us on the phone, call myself or any other leaders within our business in specific regions and say, hey, this is a customer that I'm working with. These are some of the things that I've noticed that they're doing. Is this something you guys have come across before? This is their core line of business application. If you do know that, we can talk about it, and we can kind of educate you to be able to give you some ammo to kind of walk in there and feel confident about opening up that conversation with them. And then, of course, being able to bring us in on the back end and say, well, this is the company that I work with at RapidScale. They've worked for years within the healthcare space. They've got multiple customers across the country that have seen similar problems that you guys are having today. This is what they've done for them. So would you mind, opening up having a conversation with them to see if we can help you out? And a lot of stuff that we're going to do is we're going to come in and, of course, we're very biased to our solutions. We're trying to sell our product in there, right, because we feel that we can help them and benefit their business. But at the same time, we're going to have an open conversation about what we're seeing with them and kind of help gear them the right direction. Maybe it's something we do, maybe it's something we don't do, but we always want to make you look great in this situation and be able to discuss what we think is the best move for the business to make. Again, there could be some highly specializations within each vertical that could be a challenge for you to overcome. But again, just like selling any of these services back in the day, whether it be the recovery, the cloud mail early on, the more you do it and the more you hear the conversations that we're having, the more you'll be able to feel comfortable moving forward and also be able to gain that knowledge once you understand how we do it. Also, at the same time, it's going to take a little bit of time to build up this customer base into within the existing verticals that you are working today. The last thing is something that we always like to bring, which is the credibility and the reputation, right? Whenever we are talking with a customer, it's very comforting to them when they're talking about, let's say it's a healthcare company, and they're discussing some challenges that they're having with delivering their EMR application or integrating their EMR application. More times than not, we're familiar with that. All the solution engineers that we bring in have years and years of experience in this space, and with that experience comes a lot of deals they've worked with customers within multiple verticals. So we're able to talk about that application. Why are some of the reasons that they could be having problems, and what are some things that we can do to help increase that end user experience, and also to give them a better business moving forward. So the first vertical that we're going to discuss is healthcare. Again, I mentioned this earlier. Healthcare was a very early adopter to the outsourced or the hosted space. Some of our longest customers are healthcare customers, and a lot of this has to do with, healthcare is very good at what they do from a healthcare perspective, but a lot of the standards and regulations that are put on them from HIPAA are constantly changing. So for them to be able to keep up with those standards and regulations, it's very time consuming. And typically the small to medium sized healthcare companies, that kind of 50 to 500 space for healthcare to be a little bit more exact, typically don't invest heavily in their IT employees, meaning they don't have a lot of them. So a lot of times they're kind of handcuffed in what they can do because they don't either have the time or they don't have the knowledge to be able to keep up with it. So for them, they recognize this early, that they could come to a company such as RapidScale. We can help them with, obviously, of delivering the applications and the back-end management, but at the same time, based off the technology that we're using within the infrastructure, things such as encryptions and whatnot. We're able to meet the needs that they have around those compliances as a big driver. Also, healthcare isn't typically one of which is really up to date on their technologies. So whenever they can come in and we can come in together and essentially let them know what's available to them, let's say whether it's a file sharing application such as the share file, or if it's a full-blown desktop as a service, giving them the ability to access their core line of business applications from anytime, any place, anywhere. Those things are all very relative to them because they're looking for the ease of doing business on their side, as well as being able to protect their customers' information. Last part of that is the availability of information for their doctors. So being able to, for us to be able to automate the back end and applications to have those doctors or nurses be able to access those applications and access that customer data at their fingertips, with it not necessarily being in front of a computer, but being in front of a tablet or whatnot, is something that's very beneficial for them, and also something that they see as a value to their business. And then you layer on the management on the back end with that we can provide from the patching and updating and the monitoring. All that comes into play to give them that white glove service that we've seen healthcare be very responsive to, and one of which is a very good partnership and a long-term partnership at that. So one of the things that we're going to touch on within each one of these core verticals that we're going to discuss today is some of the mainstream applications. We discussed on a slide earlier that, kind of familiarizing yourself with the applications and having that understanding. A lot of these businesses, especially similar size businesses, are going to use very similar applications, if not the same ones, right? So for us, we've worked with them, we've virtualized them, we've delivered them, whether it be through an RDS or it be through a Citrix delivery protocol. We've worked with them. We know how to migrate them over. We know how to configure it on the back end and make sure that they're having a high end user experience. So some of the core applications that you'll see in the healthcare, Allscripts, which is probably the biggest. It's the 800-pound gorilla of the EMR space. MetaTouch, eClinicalWorks, Amazing Charts, NextGen, and NewMed. So those are ones that you're going to see, and I would challenge you to even do a little bit more research on your own whenever you are deciding to be more specific or dealing with a specific customer that you have that's within one of these verticals. Is go in there and do a little bit of research on this, because some of the things that we look for and that brings credibility to you when you ask for them are versions that they're running, any kind of databases that they're running on the back end, so you can have those conversations with them where they're like, okay, that you guys know what you're talking about. I feel comfortable, kind of peeling back the onion a little more and digging in. For us, a lot of our production environments that we're running pretty much covers all of our solutions. So the cloud desktop, cloud server, mail, disaster recovery, and cloud management. Management, with an asterisk on that, because it's typically one that's going to be the reason why they decide to move this direction. They like the idea of having a good platform that's within a tier 3 data center and the securities that are in place. But if they still have to handle all the day-to-day sustainability for an environment, it doesn't maybe not make business sense to them. But us being able to come in there and handle that for them will make business sense and essentially alleviate the workloads that they have on site today. So a quick case study that we have for the healthcare space, which was pretty much if you look for a textbook type customer or a textbook opportunity for us to walk into, this was it. This was a 13 location medical rehabilitation company. They had roughly 200 employees at the time. They had a very successful business. They're very cash flow positive. This business was growing very fast. And they had a local MSP that was handling pretty much everything for them, from their supporting their voice system, their data, all the infrastructure, and as well as supporting them on the help desk doing local break fix and things of that nature. So when we first started talking with them, there was a lot of pain around just the performance of the environment in general. They had just recently purchased some new infrastructure, some new servers, and they were having challenges with delivering those essentially executable files, or also known as the applications, to those workstations at the remote locations. So that was a challenge from a performance standpoint on their end, which was limiting their ability, inhibiting their ability to work on a daily basis. That combined with the level of support, I think some of the support issues they were having was a lot of it was around the talent that was associated with that MSP. They weren't quite ready for that size of a business because they'd grown so much over time that they were a little bit limited on how they could support them. So that was essentially the kind of nuts and bolts of why we were in there. So essentially we go in there and we start discussing with them. Their CEO had done some research on his own, just like all CEOs do, where he starts, looking up what kind of technologies are available to him, and he started reading about desktop as a service. So a lot of these C-level that are driving the business, the decisions from the top, they're a mile wide and an inch deep. So they go in, they can read a little bit, oh, this is the latest, greatest, this looks like it'd be perfect for my business. Let's move our business to this model, but I don't know how or who with, right? So that's what's going to drive a lot of the conversations, is kind of listening to them and what they want. So essentially, end of the day, we put together a fully managed model from our end, which was, virtualizing all of their core line of business applications, delivering them out through Citrix. But even furthermore from that, we took it to eliminating all of the overtime, eliminating all of the PCs on site and moving them to a thin client model. And then the last piece, which was kind of the kicker, was having that local MSP meant that they were very comfortable with having somebody inside their office or with their offices all the time dedicated to that business. So essentially what we put together was we said, well, let's get a full-time employee. We'll hire them, we'll manage them, they'll be dedicated to your business, and you guys will pay us basically pay us a monthly fee for this person that's going to cover their salary and their cost. So they were very for that. Obviously they're very for that idea and that solution that we put together. In which case now this company, kind of needing to expand on this case study, they've recently merged with another location similar in size to them, a few hours away. So this company went from billing $18,000 a month to now they're up around 37. We do everything for them. And we also have, and we'll touch a little bit on the account management piece toward the end, but a very key to this business and the complexity and the amount of scale they had was a lot of communication, right? Quarterly business reviews, trouble ticket reviews, permissions and things of that nature. So that all came into place in this very white glove, fully supported model with this business. So manufacturing will be the next vertical that we discuss. This one, along with healthcare, was somewhat of an early adopter. With the manufacturing, a lot of it is they've got multiple locations that they have, whether it be warehouses or facilities of some form or fashion. So they're always looking for a way to standardize the way that they do business and to share information, because obviously whenever you have complex supply chains, you need at different locations, you need to be able to share and sync information across the board so it's readily available for folks. So one of the best ways for them to do this, of course, is to leverage a cloud platform, but also have the expertise on the back end from the engineering to be able to help set these drivers up with these guys. So some of the reasons why they look at it outside of standardization, the cost efficiency. We're seeing the private equity groups becoming very heavily involved on the back end of a lot of these manufacturing facilities. And the PE groups, for the most part, are driving cloud and understanding that these predictable costs around growth, around adding new facilities, is something that's very valuable to their business and into their budgets that they have. So a few of the applications that we deal with, we actually have a large global manufacturing customer that's based out of North Carolina. They use a software called IQMS. That is their core line of business application. That is their everything. So Sage, ShareFile, NetSuite, and Oracle as well. But again, for us going in there and having experience with multiple manufacturing companies and saying that, if we run one that does have IQ, we did a cutover for all of their international facilities, manufacturing facilities, on Christmas Day, it was like 2 years ago. That was the only time they could be down. They had about a 4-hour window within the entire year where they could do this cutover. So we've done this before. We have experience. We know what it takes to be successful in this space. Some of these companies and manufacturing is a good one there, they can be a little bit of a crawl, walk, run type process with them, meaning they're going to start small. They might not want to, if they've got 15 manufacturing facilities located across the world, odds are we're not going to just pull everything out from their infrastructure and cut everybody over at the same time, right? So there's steps that we want to take. Typically, one of the first steps that we're going to be doing and discussing with a manufacturing facility is going to be the recovery, right? Making sure you're backed up, making sure that data is recoverable. If something happens at your host center, at your main infrastructure, we have the ability to fail over and still stay up and working. So that's typically one that comes up first, as well as the exchange piece, right? However they're doing it, whether they bring their licensing or they're coming over to our platform. And then, of course, the end-all goal is to do the virtual desktops or desktop as a service so that everybody's logging in through the interface. We can control the end-user experience. We have, they have the ability to access what applications and what data they need, and we can essentially control that as well as the collaboration piece that they're going to have on the back end. So a recent case study, which is a really solid win that we did have, and this happened, I believe it was Q3 of last year. It was a large lumber manufacturer up in New York. They had about 420 desktops. This company came to us. They're with an existing hosting provider today, and they weren't very happy with it. The end-user experience wasn't very good. They weren't getting a good performance. The support they were looking to receive was not what was expected on their end, and it wasn't up to par. So we were essentially brought in there through one of our great partners up there. This one got to be relatively complex quickly for the customer side, really, because when we talk about looking at their infrastructure and delivering their applications, that's very simple to do. But where this one became very appealing to them was around the licensing piece. They had their ELA was up in December, I'm sorry. So they were looking at a huge capital expenditure to go purchase their licenses to come up. Also, as well as their Citrix licensing as well, because they previously owned their Citrix licensing and offered those to their hosting provider. So when we were able to come in and leverage our SPLA license with them, save them on that large capital expenditure that they were looking to have, which was around $200,000 in annual savings, as well as to converge their cloud mail or their hosted exchange environment onto our platform. So end of the day, very happy customer. This is one of those nice opportunities that we look at because we're coming into a situation where they've accepted early on the fact that moving to a hosting provider is the right move for their business. Possibly they made the wrong decision before, and now they're at the point where they need to reevaluate who they're having run their production environment. So that's when we got brought in there and showed a level of understanding of their space and their environment, and to be able to give them that comfortable and that being able to be comfortable and moving forward with us. So financial is one, and this one is I started seeing a big uptick in financial opportunities around probably late Q1, early Q2 of last year. So we had seen financial opportunities come in through obviously through our great partners for since I've been here, which is going on 4 years now. But it was always a challenging conversation to have. Not around the performance of the environment, but more so around the security and the reporting that these companies are looking for. Obviously, they're dealing with some very sensitive data, their concerns around the security and hacking and whatnot was very relevant, and rightfully so. It should be. You know, I think now this space has matured enough to where people they understand that this isn't something they should be worried about. You know, the encryption on the back end and the ingress egress filtering that can be put on there, as well as locking down desktops, locking down USB drives, web filtering, content filtering, all that stuff can be put into place. Not to mention the requirements around the compliances, the PCI, Sarbanes-Oxley, and SEC are all something that we've worked with before and we've done and we've passed. So those are all, we are now at the point where the financial space is moving forward and actually going from an opportunity into you know, winning the business and moving their production to us. So again, a couple core mainstream applications that you guys will see come from them. Also the products. So you know, the products in the financial, what we're seeing is it's more than just infrastructure as a service at this point. You know, they're going to want to see their full virtual desktop, and really the reason why is because if you know, now that they've realized that the hosting model or the cloud space is something that makes sense for the business, and from security's perspective, it's there. They want to take that extra step and moving into a virtual desktop, because we can truly lock down that experience that each person is receiving, right? So they can't go in there and pull data off. There's not going to be any data residing locally on the computer. All their work and production data is going to be residing within our data centers. It's going to be, you know, we have securities in place. We're going to have unified threat management on the firewalls. So all ingress, egress data is scrubbed. The web filtering, the content filtering, so on and so forth. So that's really what we're seeing with that financial space. And it really is, I mean, if you guys are going to go out there and start having these conversations, if you have any financial customers, they really have pivoted hard towards understanding that this is okay, that the security measures are in place, and most likely from the way they're doing things today, they're going to be a lot better with a company like RapidScale hosting their production data. Also, the nice thing about the financial space is that they typically will invest in more than, you know, I wouldn't say they need, but let's say, for example, if we have a customer that's running their production out of one of our data centers, you know, our data center, Sterling, Virginia, call it, that's where their production is. Odds are, you know, what I've seen in every one of these deals that I've worked is that they're going to build out a highly available environment in a secondary data center. So they're going to invest in that technology, and they're going to invest in that from the business perspective, because they want to ensure that uptime is always guaranteed. And a lot of that's more than they can say today if they're running an infrastructure locally, maybe just backing it up somewhere, or if they're with an existing provider. So we're going to build that out, which is great for you guys and for us as well, because, you know, that's going to make that MRC grow more as opposed to just hosting their production infrastructure. So a nice win we had, and this was last year, was a regional bank that was in Washington, D.C. What they had was they had an existing MSP that was working with them for years. They had recently just hired a new IT director to come in who had some experience with working with some hosted providers in the past, and he kind of took a look at what they had in place today and realized that it wasn't sufficient for the business. The performance was poor. They had the level of support they were receiving, which I know you guys it kind of sounds like a broken record, but these are all very similar problems that these companies are having that are driving them to us. So the level of support was bad. And the third part, which isn't always something that's crucial, but in this case it was a little bit excessive, was the charging they were getting per month. So the support they had built in wasn't exactly built in. So each time they were trying to call in to have issues looked at, they were getting dinged for PS fees. So that was something that was beginning to add up, and it wasn't something that was very good for their business, or not something they want to move away from. So this was a pretty lengthy sales cycle, as you can imagine, because the due diligence process that's done by a financial institution is going to be, you know, pretty stringent. So one of the other pieces that we had to kind of overcome was what kind of reporting will we be able to provide on the back end. So a lot of these banks, they want to see log management and things of that nature, a lot of stuff that can report it off the operating system. So for us, we have a very robust monitoring and management software that we use that allows us to be able to pull very granular reports from the operating system that we can provide to them. We, of course, will be working together with our great account management, our account management division, to provide these reports and work with these guys along the way. Also, they have, you know, PCI was a very big deal for them, so for us to be able to go in there and show some previous PCI audits that were done that we passed, obviously with you know, scrubbing that list so there was no sensitive information on there, but kind of showing them that this has been done and we're capable of doing this and meeting those compliances that they have. Now the nice part about this was this was about a $10,000 a month customer to start, but we have a second phase of this that's going to be rolling out in the mid-year. Around June we'll be going live with this, where we're going to be building out a highly available environment in the Dallas data center to give them that redundancy that they do need. So the last vertical we'll talk about is legal. Legal, similar to financial, was one that really started getting some teeth last year. Earlier in the year, I started seeing it. So what we've noticed with the legal firms is that they're not always jumping to spend more money on a monthly basis, right? You've got your board of advisors in there, and typically the owners of the law firm are making the decisions. So when they look at some of these MRCs, they're you know, in the past they were a little bit scared of what they were showing. However, on the other side is they just want their business to work. So if they're having problems with their infrastructure today, whether it be performance, accessibility, or what have you, they don't care how it works or what it does. We just want it to work, and we just want our business to perform well, right? We want to be able to access our information. We need to be able to upload large documents. We need to be able to access the applications outside of our offices. So those are all drivers that we're seeing that these guys have. Not to mention, they also look at very detailed backups, being able to go back and recover files if they need to from a certain point along those lines. So the security, accessibility, and the cost efficiency. The one nice thing that we're seeing around the cost efficiency with these guys is whenever we are able to get in there and start kind of digging in on the solution, we're able to put together very strong TCOs for them. So once they start seeing the technology that's going to be available to them and how they're going to be able to improve their way of doing business, and at the same time show the total cost of ownership on the back end, because these guys are smart guys, show that total cost of ownership and how that makes sense, it really helps to help get that across the finish line, which is what we're always trying to do. So a few applications again on here. iManage is one that we see very, very frequently, especially within the smaller law firms. By smaller, you know, 25 to 75 is ones that they have. And a lot of these applications within legal have interdependencies built into them. So that's something that, you know, that you guys will learn as you have experience within this space, but one that we have experience with already. So for example, iManage has a direct tie-in to Exchange. So for us, we've worked with iManage before, we've done this, so we know how those interdependencies work. So whenever we go out to do the implementation, we of course know the steps we need to take because we've done this before. And then for our sake, on the pre-sale cycle, when we can sit there and we're having the conversation and presenting this to the customer, and then as we go through the scope of work and whatnot, we are discussing what we've done in the past, what we've seen with this application. It's going to bring that level of comfort that they need, because there's a fear of the unknown that's always with these law firms and not sure what this is going to be like. But when we can talk to them about our experience with these applications and how we've done this before, and you know, some of the problems that we could expect to arise that we've overcome before in the past, that's going to help us. That's going to help us continue to move that down the road and eventually roll into a production environment. Legal, we're seeing a lot of virtual desktops as well. That's typically what they're going to want to do. They like the ability to access it outside the business. We can lock it down, those files. I mean, they're working with some very sensitive client data as well. So the security practices that we can put up front and on the back end is something that's very appealing to them as well. So the last case study was, and this was one that's been a client for quite a while now. They're your textbook small business, small legal firm. They had an on-site infrastructure. They were running lean. They had one IT guy, constantly having problems. The infrastructure was coming up to end of life, so they were looking at having to purchase some new servers for them. So at that point, they wanted to evaluate. We think there's a better way of doing this. So we got brought in by one of our partners, and we essentially evaluated what they're doing today, how they're doing business, what their infrastructure looks like, what applications are core to them and their daily workflows, and essentially put together a solution for them. Now the nice thing is for these guys is they'd already understood the technology from the top down, so they kind of made the decision that this is the way that we want to go. We just need to figure out who we're going to do it with. So for us, obviously, we eliminated the fact that they had to do it on site today. We, something that's fully managed on the back end. They, repurposed their local IT director to be able to support the desktops and do some local support while we handled all of the sustainability stuff kind of on the back end. So I spoke on this a little bit earlier, the account management. So this is, when it comes to specific verticals, the account management piece of our division is becoming as important as the pre-sale side with myself or my colleagues and you guys as we sell shoulder to shoulder with you. So our account management, we've been bringing them on very early within the sales cycle because the value that they bring on the back end, meaning the post cutover and into, while they're working is huge, and it's going to bring another level of comfort to the customer to know that we don't just kind of set it and forget it for them. We're setting up quarterly business reviews, and we're doing trouble ticket reviews, and if they're doing any type of merger and acquisitions, we're working through that with them. But at the same time, our account management is going to be discussing with the customer some things that they see arise throughout, some of our other customers' daily lives, right, on the day-to-day. So for them to come in there and kind of discuss that and say, well, these are some things that we've seen a customer similar to yours come across, right? Let's say it's a new application. Let's say they want to kind of streamline their workflows move into some form of ERP application. Our account management is going to work directly with them and say, well, these are the top 5 that we've seen of businesses similar to yours looking for this. These are the ones that we've had the most experience with, and these are the ones that we're going to recommend. So that's something that we're not charging for this service. This is the partnership that comes with working with a company like RapidScale, is that we're going to bring this service in, and that subject matter expert, where maybe they don't have the time, they don't have the desire to do this and go out and do this homework themselves. We can come in and say, what are you guys looking for? This is what we think is best for your business. Not to mention we've done this before for a similar business, so we know what this rollout is going to look like. We can put together the time frame, the scopes, and make sure that this is done right. So those are all things that help. And the last piece of it, which is very important for you guys, is the being able to retain those customers past the initial term and for the longevity of those client relationships. That constant touch that we're giving them is something that matters to them, and we develop that true partnership from a business perspective as well as a personal perspective with these customers. So whenever we're coming up to the end of a term, our account management is proactive with that. We're touching base with these customers, months in advance, and letting them know that the contract term's coming up to the end. So we're going to start discussing that and work, obviously work our hardest to get them to recommit to a new term length, which of course is great for you guys because you keep getting paid on it. So it's very good. It's good for myself. It's good for you guys. It's good for our business, and it's great for the customers. So again, something that we do a little bit of a differentiator. I know other companies may have account management divisions, but ours gets a little bit deeper into the business than most would. Because as RapidScale, as they move their production workloads to us, we become an extension of their business from an IT perspective. But now we also become a extension of their business from a planning perspective as well. So quick breakdown of the org chart. So I'm not sure if anybody's jumped on these webinars lately or what's happened, but we definitely had some shakeups out here. We've had some new hires, and we're really growing our team. And one of the things that we look at doing from the RapidScale sales side is we want to put people in market that can go in there and run shoulder-to-shoulder meetings with you, right? So for example, 2 years ago I was overseeing the entire East Coast, right? So it's very challenging sometimes for me to get to markets to run meetings when it's a hot time. So by us, by the space growing, by you guys continuing to advance in your knowledge of the space and more opportunities coming up, that's driving us to put more people in market, which we want, so we can go in there and support you the best we can. So the recent hires, we have Matt Kosa running the Northeast, who's obviously doing a phenomenal job. Heidi Knowles is now overseeing the Southeast. There is a change we need to make to this org chart, as she should have Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana as well. I've moved into the director role overseeing the East Coast. However, I still support those partners down in Florida, being that I'm here, located in Central Florida. It's easiest for me to get out there and run meetings with you if we need to. We have Paul Overstreet running the Central region. We anticipate having in Q2 a new hire in Chicago to be running that market, as well as an open rec for a solution engineer to be there. Also in the East Coast, just so if you guys are aware or not, but we've opened an office in Raleigh, North Carolina. In this office currently is Heidi. She's right down the road in Charlotte, and she's worked out of the office sometimes. But we also have Dwayne Barnes and Dylan Boutrisse working in there, and we also have a new project manager that is coming on as well to support that East region. So as you guys can see, it's starting to get pretty cluttered on the East Coast, and a lot of that has to do with the amount of success that we're having out there. So as that success comes, we're building in more people. Out on the West Coast, of course, you have Chris Moreras running the Southeast the Southern California area. We have Andrew Davis supporting up in the Northern California, and we have a rec open for a new channel manager or partner experience manager in Q3 of 2017. So last but not least, for those rewards of those folks that wrote out the webinar, we have a spiff for Q1 for those folks that are joining in. So the first one is it's a $100 gift card for the first 3 qualified opportunities for a new vertical customer. Minimum of $500 opportunity, and of course the qualification is going to come from us getting on the phone, realizing that it's of course a real deal for us to do. So you'll be getting a $100 gift card for that. The second one is the first deal sold into a new vertical opportunity. We'll get a $250 gift card, minimum $500 per month, and a minimum of a 2-year, 24-month term length. So that's all we have for today. That's all I have. I'm not sure if we have any questions coming in that are still open that we need to answer or not, if anything new comes up, but I'm certainly happy to open it up for some questions and answer those if there are any out there.
Yeah, there's one I wanted you to address with everyone. It was a good question. What is the average sales cycle length you're seeing in these different verticals?
So financial is by far the longest. I think we had a couple deals last year in the financial, and both of those were, from the point of the verbal commitment to yes, we want to do business, to going through the due diligence process and getting assigned is, roughly, 3 to 5 months. So that's a little bit uncommon for us to see. The healthcare is going to be typically a little bit faster, as well as the manufacturing and the legal. You're looking at from first call to having a signed contract in place, typically looking at 60 to 90 days. depending on the business and depending on how quickly they need to move. The lumber manufacturing company that I discussed earlier that was in the manufacturing, that was a 3-week sales cycle. But we got brought in and they had immediate needs. They had to make a move. Their contract was coming up to the end of the term with their existing provider, so they need to make a mistake. They need to make a move. That, of course, was uncommon, but also very awesome at the same time that they can do that. But you're typically looking at 60 to 90 days from the first call that we have with them, and then scheduling meetings there in between, and then running through some due diligence, reference calls, things of that nature, maybe a demo if they would like to look at a demo or any type of proof of concept to getting that contract to close.
Awesome. All right, this question, I'm not sure if you specifically threw out this number earlier, but I'm assuming it was for the healthcare case study. How did you provide on-site employee for $1,800 per month, $1,800?
So it wasn't, so the total MRC was $18,000. And what we did was, so a full-time employee that they were looking for is like a tier 1 engineer. A tier 1 engineer is roughly a $60,000 a year employee. So essentially they pay us $5,000 a month to RapidScale. We went out and hired the employee. He's a RapidScale paid employee from us, but they're paying us $5,000 a month for this.
All right. So if a client is looking at cloud options, what would help persuade them to use RapidScale over AWS or some other, big player?
So AWS and Azure, I mean, what we're looking at there, I mean, that's the rawest form of compute out there. So for a business that's looking at us versus AWS, it's very simple. How are you going to get to AWS, and what are you going to do once you're in there, right? Who's going to do the patching? Who's going to do the updating? Who's going to do the application support? Who's going to do the monitoring for utilizations? All that kind of comes into play because all you're getting with AWS and Azure is just resources, right? Okay, I just bought a 4 CPU by 16 gig of RAM server, and I've got 250 gigs of storage partitioned to that server. Now what, right? Now how do I get the application there? How do I migrate that data? If there's going to be a database assigned to it, how are we going to manage that database work? So that's all stuff that kind of goes into it. A company that's looking at AWS or Azure, the only companies that can really do it are ones that have a robust internal IT staff that have the knowledge and the ability to manage this environment themselves. So we're typically not going to be competing with that. Now, the only time where they would look at both would be if we want to move production workloads to RapidScale. We want you guys to handle the day-to-day management of this environment. By management, we're talking basically router out, all the applications and everything done, and then they can spin up, for more of an on-demand service, they can spin up some AWS to do some test dev work if they need to do that. They can spin them up, spin them down. Also, whenever it comes to us, I mean, we're looking at, we know which data center it is. All of our storage is all flash storage. We're Cisco FlexPod, so there's a level of credibility that comes with the actual stack and the infrastructure that they're running on that's going to be more appealing to them when it comes to running production workloads. The last piece of it is we have a support backboard. So, I mean, our NOC is US-based. I mean, our support runs at a very high rate, right? We get back to people. People are very happy with it. We touch them. We close tickets out. So we've got that support piece in the back end where they can pick us up and call us, even if it might be something that's a little bit outside of what we do for them. A lot of times we've got that flexibility within our business. We'll go a little bit above and beyond for a customer to ensure that they're happy and that we're giving them a good end user experience.
Perfect. I've got 2 more for you. These are great questions, you guys. So how is this different than Rackspace's managed services?
So Rackspace doesn't do desktop as a service internally. They have a third-party company that does do desktop as a service, but it's not theirs. So if you were going to do DaaS with Rackspace, you'd have 2 hops. You'd have the infrastructure where the applications are residing, and then you have the third-party, whether it be Citrix or a VMware farm, that's going to be delivering those applications. So it's going to be a better experience with us because everything's going to be running out of a single location within the same environment. Okay. Second, Rackspace is not exactly, Rackspace has moved more towards a managing of the raw compute, right? They want to manage AWS and Azure. They're not really selling there, they still are, but not as much selling their own infrastructure to reside on. They've moved to more of the managed services side of the AWS and Azure.
All right, perfect. And this one's always a good question.
And they're expensive.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. So what size company is a good fit for RapidScale?
So it's a little bit wide range. I mean, 50 to 1,000 employees is going to be a good fit for us. And the reason why I say that is because once you get above 1,000, you get into the thousands of users. That's an enterprise class business. They're going to have their own IT staff. They're going to have their own DBA guy. They're going to have a VMware guy. They're going to have a Citrix guy. So they're going to have all the internal pieces to do this themselves. So it might not always make sense for them to come to us to do this. There's instances where this does happen, but for the most part, they're doing this stuff themselves. That 50 to 1,000 space is one where they've got that SMB to mid-market. They got multiple locations, typically running pretty lean on IT resources internally. By resources, I mean employees. So they can kind of come to us, and we can help to guide them down the direction they need to go, as well as support the back end, alleviate workloads, and give them a good end user experience.
All right, we've got another kind of follow-up one to the AWS Rackspace questions. If a customer wants to move their cloud back and forth between raw cloud computing provider and our private cloud, can they do that?
They wouldn't want to. So you never want to be moving. You want to kind of pick a horse and ride it, really. You definitely don't want to be moving, production workloads consistently over the wire, kind of back and forth. So it wouldn't make much sense for them to do that. The only time that it would possibly make sense if they were doing some test dev on that side, and they wanted to kind of bring an image over to install an image on a server on our side. That could be something that they could possibly look at. But for the most part, that wouldn't make business sense, and that would become a very manual process as opposed to just picking a production environment and going with that.
All right. Let me see really quick. Does that mean that there's not an exit strategy for a business who's already using AWS?
There's always an exit strategy. There's always an exit strategy for that. I mean, a lot of companies that are using AWS today, and we are pulling a lot of them over to us, is because they thought that this is what they wanted, and then once they got into it, they realized that there was a lot more work that they had to do previously, or more work than they want to do. So yes, I mean, once they figure out the level of management that can be laid on the back end from us, as well as still giving them the uptime they need, there's 100% a migration strategy and a very good opportunity for you guys to take a look at if they are doing that. Because most companies are looking to do less work as opposed to more work.
All right, and I'm going to make this our final question, and then we'll let you all go. So do we help optimize AWS costs, or can moving over to RapidScale be a cheaper option for than AWS if price is a huge concern for the customer?
So you have to look at more than just price when it comes to this. So AWS is going to be, pound for pound, AWS is going to be cheapest. That's just what they are, right? They're running on old Pentiums. I mean, it's just extra servers that they had where they decided to build the cloud years ago with. So for the most part, if you look at 50 CPU and 150 gigs of RAM from RapidScale, and you look at 50 CPU and 150 gigs of RAM from AWS, it's typically going to be cheaper for the AWS, but that doesn't include the support that comes along with it, right? So you have to factor in those soft costs with the customer, and that's typically something we have to talk through, right? I mean, it's not this is a solution sale whenever we're doing this, right? We're not price selling. So the thing that we're going to want to do is show the value of what we're doing from uptimes, from the support standpoint, from the additional management that's available to them, if not all but some. So that's something that we're going to take a look at. And typically a company that's looking at I mean, you want to see how their business is put together. So if they just go online, you can go online and go buy a server with your credit card from AWS, right? But then what are you going to do with it, right? So there's a more complex conversation that needs to happen around their business and how they're doing business and what exactly you're looking for, as opposed to just bottom line on AWS. But typically I mean, they've kind of set the threshold for the market price of a lot of these services. So we try to stay, in line with those that they're doing. But obviously, just depending on what they need and how they're doing business is going to decide whether or not it's going to be a good fit for them.
All right, that's it on my end.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for jumping on today. I really appreciate you guys doing this. This is a big year for the cloud space, and I think specializing yourselves into these verticals and understanding ones that you've had experience with in the past is going to be very beneficial for you. Just like I mentioned before, I mean, we're here to help you guys out, have pre-conversations. If you're not ready to bring us into a customer yet, you want to call us and walk through an opportunity and for us to give you some information to go in there with or some questions. We're certainly happy to do that for you. That's something we do every day. And then engage with the customer, as you best see fit. So thanks, guys. Again, appreciate your time. Hope you have a great month, and look forward to seeing you all very soon.